Well, look, as I said last night, the New South Wales and Queensland budgets were delivered on the same day. One Liberal in New South Wales, one Labor in Queensland. What was the difference? None. The spending and debt are crazy in New South Wales. The predicted budget deficit this year, $11.3 billion. That is spending more than you raise. And a laughable estimate that the budget will be back in surplus in 2024-25. But the net debt in New South Wales has gone from $37 billion last financial year to $115 billion in 2025-26, an increase of nearly 200%. And the Treasurer, Matt Keane, says this is a budget for families and kids. What nonsense. They're the ones who will be paying off the debt and paying off the federal debt as well. I haven't discussed the first home buyer's choice of paying stamp duty up front or switching to a land tax, other than to say, if this is meant to be tax reform to eliminate stamp duty, it is a long way off. And first home buyers will be entitled to be confused. If they opt for the land tax option, which could be as high as $3,000 a year, that will then reduce the amount the homeowner would be able to borrow. So I'm saying to them, take care. Well, then we entered the fairyland of Queensland budget projections. A deficit this coming year of more than $1 billion. But again, 2024-25, there'll be a surplus. That's if you believe in tooth fairies at the bottom of the garden. How do you get to a surplus? Well, it's the Labor government. They demonise coal and gas, fossil fuels. We want them out of the way by 2030, except that the high prices for coal, oil and liquefied natural gas have poured money into the Queensland Treasury coffers. Then, with burgeoning house prices, where the Gold Coast has seen some of the highest growth in Australia, stamp duty revenue was more than $9 billion greater than it was in the previous year. But governments being government, they can't wait to spend it. Don't be fooled in Queensland by government debt, because there's a stack of debt held by government corporations, to say nothing of the state government's superannuation liabilities. But when there's debt, you have to borrow, and interest rates are going up. So will the Queensland government's borrowings, from $54 billion last financial year to an estimated $87 billion in 2025-26. This is a rise of more than 66%, which I suppose beats New South Wales, whose net debt in the same time has climbed 200%. Remember, taxpayers have to confront this along with unconscionable levels of federal debt. I can sum all this up in two sentences. To state and federal governments, stop and turn around. You're going in the wrong direction. Well, thankfully, there is a new leader of the opposition in Queensland after a disgraceful performance at the last state election, where the Labor Party won 4 seats and the coalition lost 5. David Crisafulli and his team will have to win 13 seats to win government. But the way things are going, David Crisafulli can do it and break the Labor stranglehold on governments across Australia. And he joins me tonight. David, thank you for your time. David, can we just first go to that press conference by the Treasurer Cameron Dick in Cairns during the election, October 2020, and he was asked on taxes, are you ruling out new or increased business taxes? As I said, day 3 of the election campaign, and the Treasurer Cameron Dick said, quote, there won't be any increased taxes. We've said that very clearly from the start. No new taxes from the Labor government if we are re-elected. David Crisafulli, is it a terrible thing to ask, but are we being run by people who are slippery with the truth?
It's one of the greatest breaches of faith I've seen, Alan. He was deliberately asked on 26 occasions, and on 26 occasions he ruled out any new or increased taxes. You've hit the nail on the head. The press conference you're referring to was in far north Queensland, and somebody said to him, does that relate to business? And his answer was, no new or increased taxes. He's now saying today that because in his answer he didn't say the word business, therefore it doesn't relate to business. What an absolute disgraceful comment. They are broke and they are going after anything that isn't bolted down to have a crack at. Now, this nonsense that somehow you can just keep on throwing taxes willy-nilly, hell west and crooked, and that it doesn't impact everyday Queenslanders, just really sad. It's sad that a government would breach people's faith. They knew it before the election. They were slippery with the truth. And is it any wonder there is a conga line of people criticising them because taxes and fees and charges are going up and service levels in Queensland continue to go down. We have the worst hospital system in the nation, ambulance ramping at 42%. We've got the worst youth justice laws. We have road backlogs with projects blowing out and maintenance backlog of $6 billion. And we have a housing crisis where people are living in their cars. What a disgrace.